All right, so the recording is starting. Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for showing up to our Career Tech open house. I know I've used the term open house, and unfortunately it's not much of an open house because we can't show you around labs and our facilities, and I'm very sorry for that. However, we're very excited that you've joined us tonight to learn about the Career Tech programs and the opportunities that are available for students in grades 9 through 12 in both of our high schools, Southview and Northview. So this evening we hope to answer your questions and give you an opportunity to ask those questions. So let's go ahead and get into the presentation. I'm going to present my screen. So let me start that now. Okay, so everybody should be able to see my screen now. I'm going to go ahead and to present mode. And tonight's presentation has some dense information in it. I don't usually give a presentation with a lot of text information, but I also consider this presentation to be a takeaway, sort of a handout that you can take with you. There are a couple links in there that you could follow, and that information is pretty valuable. So if you want to take that with you, there's a shortened URL as well as a QR code. And following this presentation, I will most likely send a thank you email to everybody that attended with the link as well. But in case you want that right now, there's your information with the QR and the shortened URL. Okay, so as I mentioned before I started recording, welcome. My name is Alexander Clarkson, and I am the Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, which means that I am in charge of curriculum and instruction for our students in grades 6 through 12. As part of that, I am also the director of our career technical programs that happen primarily at our two high schools, Southview and Northview. So I'll be managing the presentation tonight, but with me we have...
I am Brian Smith. I am the horticulture teacher here in Sylvania Schools. I am entering my 5th year as the horticulture teacher, and I am a very own prodigy of Sylvania Schools. I went through the program that I currently teach. And the reason why I came here is because I have 9 years of industry recognized credential in our very own Sylvania community, working for Sylvania Recreation and the Toledo Metro Parks. So my background is to help students succeed either at the college level or right out of high school, get into the industry. And that's why we're here tonight, is to talk about all those great opportunities.
And also joining us is John Austin, who is our Southview engineering teacher, and he's popped in. Brian and I worked out this presentation, but I'm sure that John will be able to contribute as well. It's most valuable in a presentation like this for us to have actual teachers, because they can give you firsthand experience of this. And both John and Brian also have experience, as Brian mentioned, out there in industry. I'm a former English teacher. I hold a philosophy degree, which means that I'm pretty far from applied career field. But these two gentlemen are deep in the thick of it. They have been, and they educate Sylvania students and have been doing so for years. So they'll be able to provide excellent perspective in answering a lot of your questions. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk first about what it means for us in Sylvania Schools. You might have heard of Penta, Vocational Center for County. Well, our high schools are considered comprehensive high schools. It's a little bit different from Perrysburg, a bit different from Anthony Wayne. We share company with Whitmer and Oregon and Toledo Public Schools, but not Maumee. Comprehensive high school means that we carry our career tech programs on site as part of our district. Many other suburban schools don't have career tech programs, and they're not a full career center. We are a full career center, which means we have a breadth of different career pathways and different career programs. And I'll talk about all those career programs in a moment. But being a comprehensive high school is something that's actually pretty special. And here's why. If you were going to one of those other high schools, you wouldn't have the opportunity to just walk down the hall and get into a career tech program. You would have to jump onto a bus and go off site to another center like Penta or Fort County to get that full experience. The fact that we're a comprehensive high school means that we offer feeder courses. These are introductory courses in career areas that we'll talk about later. Those are freshman and sophomore courses. We also offer full 2-year programs, and that means that students would work with a teacher or teachers in a career program for 2 years to earn industry credentials and get a really robust preparation for a specific career field. It also means that we offer 17 programs between our 2 high schools, and those span 14 different career fields. So we've got quite a bit of diversity in Sylvania Schools. It's something that we're extraordinarily proud of. And I'll tell you, I don't know the parents in the room what your high school was like. Maybe you went to a high school like this. Mr. Smith certainly did. However, the offerings here are vastly more diverse and rich than those that I had when I was in high school. We're really proud of that. So let's talk about why you might want to choose career tech. And before we talk about why choosing career tech, I want to make sure you understand going into it that choosing career tech is not, I'm going to choose career tech and not do this. Because we're a comprehensive high school, you can choose career tech programs, full programs and classes, and still get into all the other classes and take all the other classes that you wanted to take. We often have students in career tech programs that are taking AP courses, music and performing arts courses. You don't really have to lose out on any of the advanced and diverse offerings outside of career tech by taking your career tech course or program. But let's talk about why you might want to make that change. When we're in Sylvania Schools, what career tech will offer is, first and foremost, a diversity in education. We're talking going beyond the 4 core subject areas, those being math, social studies, science, and English. Those courses, on a very traditional model, form the backbone of our liberal arts education. And it's a fairly traditional model. Even though education has changed in the 21st century, it is still very much an issue of going into a classroom, sitting at a desk, working with other students, working with a teacher on some traditionally oriented education. So by offering career tech, we can offer a more diverse program of studies. And when you take a look at our program of studies for both Southview and Northview, you'll see that diversity, and a lot of it is carried through our career tech programs. That means that we have the flexibility in Sylvania Schools to meet students' personal interests. So yeah, being an English teacher and sometimes teaching seniors, very few of my students said that they have a driving, burning desire to write. But it was a required course, and so they took it. However, some of our students have a driving and burning desire to design video games, to get involved in actual practical teaching, to get involved in financial markets, to work with their hands on welding, electronics, or rocketry. And we have the flexibility to meet all of those personal interests, not just a humanitarian academic like me, but something that would apply to a variety of different career preparation areas. And this is not just preparation for career, but it's excellent experience and education preparing for college programs. So quite often we can offer college credit through a variety of means that would prepare a student just to earn some credits, but also with the experience, both academically and in applied fashion, that can help with a college program. And finally, we're talking about real applied learning, not just conceptual learning on hypothetical examples, but actually getting your hands dirty. And sometimes that's figurative and sometimes it's literal. In Mr. Smith's case, it's quite often literal when he's working in the area of horticulture. In some other areas, like we're talking about financial management, the getting your hands dirty would be more conceptual and working with real world finances. But we're also talking about medical technologies and getting into hospitals and actually working with patients. So this takes our students out of the field of conceptual academics in the classroom and into something that is a bit more real, a bit more immediate, and therefore has often some more relevance and authenticity for our students. And our career tech programs offer that for all Sylvania students. Applied learning. I mentioned that. That's the core of career tech. You're not just learning about science. You're not just learning about math. You're applying it. And before you think this is all just about STEM, realize that we do have a theatrical performing arts program, so it's not always just STEM. We are also talking about the humanities. We are also talking about graphic design. We're talking about a number of different arts and letters-oriented career fields, but it's always applied. These lead to industry credentials. That means that students often, and we'll talk about this more in detail later, get actual industry certificates that are not education certificates. They're actual industry certificates that prove that they've done preparation that would make them employable in a certain career field. While they're doing this applied learning for these credentials, it's always about teamwork. Students must work on teams. Mr. Smith can talk about that in just a moment, but teamwork is the deal in career tech. If you can't work on a team, you can't work out there in industry, and you can't work in a career tech program. And this builds teamwork in ways that core academics don't always. And of course, whenever you're talking about teamwork, that provides an opportunity for leadership. We have competitive teams, and there are officers on organizations, and there's leadership in the classroom. Opportunities for that exist quite a lot. This helps build students' resumes, gives them material to talk about in cover letters, and we build the skills that are necessary for job seeking. And all of this is preparation for a job. So again, I sometimes use myself as a contrast because I just took an English degree, a philosophy degree, and eventually education. None of that was preparing me for the real world skills necessary to hold a job. I kind of had to learn that on the job. But students coming out of our programs are better prepared than their peers for tackling that in the real world, right out of the gate, before college even. Mr. Smith, did you want to add anything to any of that?
Sure. I think what each career tech student receives out of what we just talked about, at least down in the manufacturing end of Southview, is we're applying skills that students are going to take with them for their entire life. Tool identification and tool usage. If they get a house, an apartment, if they're helping you at home, they're gaining these skills to help out their family, and they're gaining industry credentials while doing it. We start from the very bottom and we work all the way up to the top. The leadership and the teamwork is not a trait that you can teach someone. They gain that from being around their peers in those group settings, and that's how they build those leadership skills. And then job readiness skills, we all have employability skills in our programs. For me, I do a punch-in system where students punch a clock when they enter to make sure that they're on time. Construction, they're using getting ready for class, making sure they have the right materials. Each career tech that a student is placed in or they are applying for, they are trained to be ready for the job.
So you're probably wondering, okay, what's available? We've talked about a few programs, and really the diversity is honest and true. So we offer quite a range of different experiences. What we've got on this slide is actually just a sampling. I didn't exhaust everything we do. I ran out of space. And I think what you can see is that we do have that diversity. We range everywhere from hair and nail care and salon operations in our cosmetology program to patient care, medical terminology and nursing skills in our med tech program. Our programming programs do mobile app design. They work on database administration and straight on coding. We talk about childcare and teaching. And our students in our teaching program actually work with real students both in a preschool at Northview as well as in our Sylvania schools as they work with teachers. In Brian's area, we work with green sciences and applied sciences, horticulture, working with landscape management and greenhouse management. Forklift operation is part of our construction program. Our engineering students at Southview do rocketry competitions. They just had a meeting, by the way, a conference call with NASA last week to talk about their rocket competition that is coming up this year. And then they traveled out that weekend to do level 1 certifications on rocketry. So those sorts of things, as you can see, there's a breadth of programs that we offer in career tech, a breadth of different experiences that are not only job preparation, but also of intense interest to students that are exploring their world outside the 4 core academic areas. But we want to talk about each one of these. So this is the point at which Mr. Smith and I are going to talk about each individual program. So let us go through that. And actually, since we have Mr. Austin here, John, if you wouldn't mind, we actually start off with yours, the manufacturing trades program at Southview. So Mr. Austin, I don't know if you're still there and you wanted to unmute yourself and explain what happens with students in your program.
All right. Yeah, no problem, Alex. I'm John Austin. I teach the, we call it engineering and fabrication technology at Southview, but we're moving under the manufacturing content and standards. So I can pick up another welding class. Engineering only allows one welding class under that pathway. So we're moving over to manufacturing, so I can pick up a second one, and I can move in industrial maintenance because it ties in better with our credentialing. Because out of my program, students finish core curriculum and electrical level 1 through the National Center for Construction and Education and Research. We do a lot of different things because we have a robotics class. It's a year long for freshmen, sophomores. Actually, anybody can take it, freshman through senior. Then we have a woods and metals class, which is freshman, sophomore focused. And those both are year long. Then we have some semester long courses, engineering design, alternative energy, CAD. And I don't teach the semester courses. That's Mr. Jump. So I'm not the best one to ask on those. And if I didn't say engineering applications, that's also one of them. But in my course, in the program itself, junior year is when students first get into doing electrical, which includes conduit bending, learning Ohm's law, learning power formula, going through the science side of it, and then the application side. And then we roll into welding for that year. And then the following year, we're back into the electrical and the welding again. We merge those a little more. And so when students come out, they have credentials. They also have an OSHA 10 credential because that's part of the program as well. So when they come out, they've completed the first year of book work for an apprenticeship in electrical. Depends on where they go afterwards, who recognizes what, but the state recognizes it.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. That's awesome. By the way, we're going to talk at the end of this about how Mr. Austin, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Roach of the construction program are actually going to have a second open house in which they're going to delve really deeply into those 3 programs and the opportunities that are there for students. So thanks, John. We also have a different engineering program over at Northview. If you see that we have Southview Engineering and Northview Engineering, these 2 programs are a bit different. And Northview's engineering is the one that deals with aerospace engineering. They still do electronics. They still do robotics, but there's a focus on rocketry and design that is often aligned with NASA competition. Computer programming. So we have 2 computer programming programs, one at Southview and one at Northview. And the Southview one focuses on coding and developing mobile apps. And the Northview one focuses on database administration and website design. So there are different programs at different schools, even though they're both called programming.
We know medical technology is a very essential part of our lives these days. We offer 2 medical technology programs, one at Northview and one at Southview. They are doing everything from credentials on mannequins, checking off different tasks. They are doing shadowing in hospitals, real-life patient care. This is a top-notch program. We just updated our lab space at Southview. Very popular program within our Sylvania schools.
And then cosmetology is also an extraordinarily popular program, and we have a full operating salon over at Northview, in case you didn't know that. It takes clients from the public and teaches our students hair and nail operations and salon operations. Chris Jude, the teacher, the veteran teacher, also teaches with Holly Buck, could just rattle off stories of students that have left her program to become successful in salon industry. Next, we have education and training. And education and training is our teacher training program. And that teacher training program allows students to work with preschool students at Northview and also work with students here in Sylvania Schools and earn preparation industry credentials in education.
Construction is not what you think. We do everything from forklift operations here to construction molding. They're doing electrical, they're doing plumbing. They do everything that you can think of. The other program that they offer is practical architectural plan reading, where they're actually reading live construction plans and implementing them on a job.
Interactive media is where students over located at Northview deal with graphic design and actually do movie making. So this is the one area in career tech where students who might be not just aspiring filmmakers, because film is Hollywood's a very small part of film, but industrial preparation in graphic design and movie making.
Financial management, this was an awesome program that I was able to get help on. Mr. Bassick teaches a phenomenal financial management program. From business to personal finances, them looking at the stock market every day to see what's up and down, how to balance a checkbook, and then all over overall just money management in general.
Yeah, we have a lot of young students in there who are very interested in money and how to make it. And that's why it draws them to the financial management program. Business technology is also similar. However, in business technology, there's a focus on small business ownership, marketing and entrepreneurship, as well as the technology of business. And that is everything from business productivity software on up. Then I think Mr. Smith knows a little bit about this one.
Just a little bit. I won't take too much time or show any bias, but I offer 6 different courses in the horticulture pathway, and 2 of them are feeder courses, and we will talk about that here in a little bit. But my program consists of parks and recreation, greenhouse management, landscape management, and business management. And I'm not going to go into all of them, but we run a mini business. If you guys have not seen or heard of the holiday sale, we are a top-notch business that students are working with the registers to dealing with customers, taking products out and promoting the artistic side of students when they're creating not just the holiday wreaths and blankets, but into the greenhouse when they work to make flower arrangements. So the program is not just farming. It is a very broad course that you can take.
Yeah, and I got to say, last spring when we closed down and could not do the spring sale that the horticulture program usually runs because we were totally shut down, we basically took all of the product that that program had created and delivered it to our first responders. I was shocked, amazed, and dumbfounded when we filled our 5th bus full of absolutely gorgeous floriculture that we delivered to those folks. Some pretty impressive stuff they do with those sales and productivity. Next, we have our newest program. We're in year 2. Theatrical performing arts is something that I think is really special, because when somebody's thinking about career tech, they don't often think about singing and dancing and cavorting about on a stage. But Ms. Shepard over at Southview is running an amazing program. That's the image there. A couple of students at a career expo doing demonstrations of tap dancing. And that program actually gets them involved as well in connecting with industry professionals. Ms. Shepard has connections in the theatrical field in New York City. And so students are able to talk with those professionals and learn about real industry. VCD, visual communication design, is also graphic arts, kind of like interactive media was. However, the big draw here is the game design. So if any of our students, or maybe even our parents, are familiar with the Unreal Engine, which is an industry standard 3D rendering piece of software, that's what our students use. And that Unreal Engine is used to create 3D games, and actually used now to create a lot of the computer graphic effects in movies. And our students are learning that industry standard software. And finally, and I apologize, Mr. Smith, I think I skipped over one that was going to be yours. Family and consumer science. We do have a program that focuses on food science, culinary arts, child development. This is the modern version of the old home ec that we might have experienced when some of us were in school. But the one difference here is that family and consumer sciences at this time does not have a 2-year program. It is just our feeder courses, just our elective courses, not a junior senior program. So that's all of them. And during our question and answer period, we will have an opportunity to answer some questions. But again, we have several open houses coming up that'll focus on these, and you'll get to meet the teachers in these programs if you do have more questions and want to hear details. So Mr. Smith's going to talk about the industry credentials that can be earned during a career tech program.
So industry credentials are basically showing or verifying that a student has qualifications or competence in an area. So Sylvania Schools offers multiple industry credentials, and Mr. Austin and myself, we both touched on how our students in our programs can receive those. But just to name a few, our med tech programs, the students are able to obtain an STNA. So that is a certificate that they can get at the end of their senior year, and that is going to benefit them after high school, of course, but also give them that experience of, do they really want to do this in the field, and do they want to continue? And I think that's really the goal of career tech, is to make sure that students really get the feel of a career before they go spend thousands of dollars on college for a program that they might not like. So with a comprehensive school district, a student is allowed to go in and see what they like and see what they have to offer, rather than spending 4 periods on a bus, like Mr. Clarkson said, traveling somewhere. Cosmetology, a board license, they're going to walk away as seniors and be able to find a job anywhere with that board licensure. They're going to be able to go to a salon in Sylvania, in a local area, and obtain employment right away after high school. NCCER, or the National Center for Construction Education and Research, Mr. Austin is doing that currently. There is a core section of NCCR where students obtain 6 industry credentials. And then there is a level 1 certification that, if they complete, would also get them 6 points. And that is just everything you can think of on checkoffs. They have to demonstrate the skill in order to obtain this credential. And I think that's awesome. To give an example, they have to go up on an extension ladder to show that they safely know how to climb a ladder. When are you not going to climb a ladder after high school, during high school, at home, at your apartment? These are skills that they are demonstrating to certified instructors to get checked off on. OSHA safety certifications, all 3 of us in the manufacturing world down here are giving OSHA 10 credentials, meaning they are getting 10 hours of industry safety and health certifications that never expire, meaning they will get a card in the mail sponsored by OSHA that they can take to an employer to say, I have 10 hours of safety. They are 1 step ahead of the other competitors that are going for that same job. And then MAC operations, one that I am not too involved with, but Mr. Clarkson, if you want to chime in on the MAC operations, feel free.
Being a PC guy, I would if I could, but Mac Operations is one of those credentials that is part of our VCD program, that game design program. And fortunately, Mr. Eshador, who leads that program, is in development on his own open house. So you can jump into that if you're interested in the graphic design, movie making, and game design, because they'll be talking about those credentials and more. And there are more. We didn't list every credential that we offer through our programs there. We also offer work-based learning. So our students in our programs involve themselves in what we call work-based learning. It's not just one thing. So it could include internships. Our students do complete internships, which is usually only something that college students do, or, well, our high school students do it. They also do job shadowing. So they do different levels of getting involved out there in the career field. They will do facility visits and tours. And here's an image from a facility visit that Mr. Smith managed. There's one on the closing slide, which is actually my no offense, Mr. Smith. Probably one of my favorite facility visit images from Mr. Austin's class, which I'm looking forward to seeing again. I always love that picture. And they also do paid employment. So our students can actually work jobs and have that count toward credit for their class. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on in that, which Mr. Smith can probably talk about. But just rest assured that that means the students are not only working a job, but they're reflecting on that job, reporting on that job, discussing it in their career tech program so they can build those job readiness skills. By the way, I will say that this last one, the paid employment, the internships, that's a big draw for a lot of our students in junior and senior year because they love the idea that in semester 2, they will spend very little time at school. They will get out of school early and go to their internships, which is an exciting opportunity for them and a great way to kind of bridge that gap between employability and school when they're doing both at the same time. But I'll let Mr. Smith talk a little bit more about what this means for his program because I think he does a really good job with work-based learning.
So I incorporate work-based learning within my program, meaning I have a school bus that I drive my students to different facilities to gain hands-on learning. And a lot of families believe that work-based learning only comes from the workplace. Well, I take my students directly to possible internships, possible shadowing opportunities, possible employment, to meet with employers to see what they need to do in order to obtain a job. And not only do we speak directly with them, they put my students to work. We get our hands dirty and we work in the field that during the facilities that we go and tour and visit. Also, construction has their own bus and they take students to different sites, different homes to do construction. We just have a lot of ways of showing our students different opportunities to learn, whether it's kinesthetically, whether it's auditorily. We have every option that a student can learn.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Let's talk about which types of courses, because we've been talking about these feeder and program courses. So feeders are introductory experiences in the field. So these are semester-long, oh, sorry, didn't mean to go there. Semester-long or year-long courses. That means a student's not enrolled in a full 2-year career tech program yet. These are the freshman and sophomore courses. And just about everything I mentioned before, students can experience in those feeder courses. So I know I talked, for instance, about VCD and game design. Well, we have a 2D game design feeder course. I know I talked about computer programming. We have an Intro to Computer Programming feeder course. That leads to our 2-year programs. Students might take a feeder, they're interested in that, they want to go into the 2-year program, which is junior and senior year. And those 2 years are either a minimum of 2 periods a day and sometimes 3+, especially depending upon whether or not it has core academics aligned to it. For instance, a med tech student has to take an anatomy course at the same time, and that's considered part of the package. Health careers would be something that would lead to med tech. Plant science and Horic foundations, and Mr. Smith will talk about these in a moment, would lead to his program. Robotics would lead to Mr. Austin's program, as well as Mr. Reed's over at Northview. We have cosmetology foundations, which gives some intro experiences there. And culinary arts is a feeder, which I mentioned is a feeder without a program, but they still get those experiences. That is just a tiny list of the feeders that we have. Our programs, of course, are just like we talked about: medical technology, construction, financial management, interactive media. These are the types of programs that students will, oops, I was wondering why that picture wasn't coming in. Students will get involved in for over 2 years, over the course of 2 years. Mr. Smith, go ahead and talk about what that means for horticulture.
So the feeder courses are, we don't like to use the word introductory because they're very rigorous in curriculum. So for me, a horticulture foundations course will do everything that my juniors and seniors are doing, but on a basic level, meaning we don't go as in depth. So we're still doing greenhouse management where we're learning about plant science. We're doing a little bit of food science. It's very, very broad. The second year or the sophomore class of plant science, it's what it says. It's plant science. We're learning about the anatomy. We're learning about the science behind plants and how they grow, the nutrition. And that is basically trying to get them geared towards my program their junior and senior year. So feeder courses are to, hey, get your feet wet. We want you to introduce you some of this curriculum. Do you think you would be interested in taking it the next 2 years of your high school? So feeder courses really give you the broad experience of the program. You're still in the program, but not labeled as it. And then as soon as you hit your junior year, that's when you really know that you want to take that program.
So how does this work then? Freshman and sophomore years, students will, I'm sorry for using the word introductory, Mr. Smith, apologize, will take their feeder courses. And you can choose from a number of different feeder courses. All of these will count as elective credit toward graduation, by the way. Students in career tech rarely have problems with accumulating credits toward graduation. And then junior and senior years, students will take that 2-year program, which will continue with the same teacher or the same teacher team for those 2 years for 2 to 3 periods a day, plus possibly some aligned academics like I was talking about with med tech. So that's how our comprehensive career center runs. 4 years, 9 through 12, students can get into a high school, start right out of the gate freshman year, taking career tech courses and take a variety of career tech courses. But if anybody asks, I'll predict this question. Could you be involved in 2 programs junior or senior year? It's really rare, and I think I've seen it happen once or twice. But it's just a scheduling nightmare to get both of those going at the same time, but I've seen it happen. And sometimes it happens in very rare cases where a student has a different sort of background, might be more advanced, something like that. Generally, you focus on one program junior and senior year. So then you might wonder, what are the next steps? So where do we go now? And why are we doing this right now? Because it's scheduling season coming up. I know it's crazy. I know it feels like it's barely even November, but we gear up for scheduling and choosing courses for the next year this early, which means that you, if you're a student, or your children, if you're a parent, will very soon start hearing presentations and having meetings with counselors about what courses they're going to take next year. This is the time to think about it. This is the time to talk about it. Talk about it with your children. Talk about it with your parents. Talk about it with your counselors. And these teachers have open door policies. If you had a question about horticulture, and I know pandemic makes it a little bit difficult, but if you had a question about horticulture, walking down to Mr. Smith's room, I guarantee that he would talk you up about his horticulture program and answer every question that you had. But of course, everybody's available by email as well. So you could always email and have conversations with teachers. Just talk about and consider everything that's going on. I've provided links to the Northview and Southview programs of study. And those links right now are to this year's, the 2021 program of study, because we're currently revising it for 21-22, and that'll be available shortly. But there's not a ton of change in our career tech programs. Mostly those are the same. There might be a course change here or there, but they're mostly intact. So take a look at those programs of study and have those discussions and ask questions. And then you can also attend another open house. So we have a trades open house and a programming open house scheduled, and we're currently working on that interactive media VCD open house, and we're hoping to get some more on the books. So the trades open house, Brian, is a week from Wednesday?
Yeah, it is December 2nd, and that will consist of the manufacturing trades, construction, and horticulture. 3 of us teachers will be holding that open house 5:30 to 6:30.
And then the following week is the programming open house with Mr. Jones and Mr. Word, Southview and Northview teachers. So if you would like to RSVP as you did for this, The link is in there, and you can just sign up and you'll get the email confirming and giving you the link and all of that good stuff. Okay, so this is what you should really be considering now: getting more information, asking questions. There's that picture I love, Mr. Austin with his women in engineering. He and Mr. Foydek took a group of our female students out to, where'd you go, John?
Blue Scope Steel, North Star Blue Scope, out in Delta.
Yeah, it's not only an awesome work-based learning experience, but it's a great indication about how career tech is for everybody, regardless of gender or background. So that was a fantastic opportunity that we had. At this point, thank you very much, but we're going to open everything for questions. You can feel free to raise your hand, throw something in the chat if you'd like. Google Meet now has a hand raise feature that should be in your toolbar down at the bottom. So if you'd like to either post something in the chat or raise your hand, Mr. Smith, Mr. Austin, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
We did that well of a job. There's no question, Mr. Clarkson.
Yeah, sometimes we talk so much that people are scared that if they ask questions, we'll talk more. But no, I guess that's good. Oh, Laura Coy, go for it. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I guess I have a question. My child attends Ottawa Hills High School.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like as far as transition from Ottawa Hills to Sylvania for the class and back to Ottawa Hills for his other classes?
That is a fantastic question. So those of you that don't know, we are in a compact with Ottawa Hills to provide career tech services. So instead of Ottawa Hills going out to Penta or somewhere else, Ottawa Hills students come to us. And Ms. Coy, that means that students would get Ottawa Hills transportation. They always arrange transportation. The counselors over there arrange the schedule. So whatever that schedule is, I'm not sure because the counselors over there always work it out. They ask us when the student has to be at our school. We tell them the schedule, and then they take care of the rest. So actually, Mr. Smith right now has a student from Ottawa Hills taking his horticulture program. So Mr. Smith, would you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, he provides his own transportation to my program. So I don't know what that looks like on their end for providing transportation, but there has been no hiccups at all from the Ottawa Hills district for career tech in my program.
Yeah, but we've had an excellent partnership with Ottawa Hills, and we're happy to have their students in our buildings. Okay, so got Martha Mahoney, I believe I saw a hand raised. If you would like to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question as well.
I was going to ask the dumb question. I think I missed it if you said at the beginning. Are you emailing this presentation out afterward?
Yes, we will respond. Yep.
I figured you said that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sure. So we've got a couple questions in the chat. My son is considering between engineering programming and robotics. Should he take the feeder course in his sophomore year? Sure. That would be a great way to start that. So Mr. Austin, do you want to mention some of those some of the engineering courses that are available for students considering?
Sure. If they're at Southview, we have the robotics course. That's a year-long course. We also have engineering applications, engineering design, CAD, and alternative energy. I think it's called Introduction to Alternative Energy on the registration. Any of those work if your students trying to just see whether they like to be in the environment or not. Robotics, we don't have a full robotics program. There is no full robotics program that we can even build through any of the pathways the way it's set up from Ohio Department of Education. But And then computer programming with those feeder courses, it's a great thing to jump in and do.
Yep. And computer program, Mr. Austin's right. Robotics is part of what we do. We have electives and it's figured into the engineering program over at Northview, but it's not its own program. It's part of, it's a subsection of engineering. And for programming, we have Intro to Programming and 2D Game Design are our two programming feeder courses that students can take. You can take both. You can take an engineering feeder course, you can take a programming feeder course, take the robotics all year, and definitely get a sense of both of those areas. Let's see. Couple of questions. Is it too late to start as a junior? If you're currently a junior, could you get into a 2-year program your senior year? The answer is yes, by the way. So every year we have students who are juniors and not in a career tech program who ask to be in a career tech program knowing they won't be able to do the full 2 years. We do allow them in. The one asterisk I'll throw on that is that they get less priority registration than our juniors. So basically, if there is space in the program, they will be allowed to take that program only for the single year. So if you're currently a junior, it is not too late to be involved in a program. A lot of students have gotten involved their senior year and have very much enjoyed the single year experience. They would probably come in at a level 1 though, so they'd be in the junior class. Rare cases where they get in at a level 2. Claire, looks like my daughter is interested in being an ultrasound tech. Yeah, med tech would definitely be helpful because being an ultrasound tech, your daughter will be in doctor's offices and hospitals, actual clinical environments, getting real on-the-job experience with those areas. So I would highly recommend med tech. Also, a medical terminology course that leads to college credit. That means that she doesn't have to take medical terminology when she goes to college. So there's some money right there in the bank, and getting that experience before going to college. Yeah, and she's taking child development. This is sort of a different world of caring for patients from child development. Another son is currently a sophomore and is interested in coding. He has missed out on the opportunity to do this by taking a course already. Absolutely not. You can jump in anytime. Like I mentioned, you could jump in as a senior, and I've talked with Mr. Jones, who is our programming teacher, and I would encourage you to go to that open house. He said that students that don't take Intro to Computer Programming, the feeder course, are not at a disadvantage to complete his full 2-year program. So those students can get there with 0 prep and still succeed in a 2-year program. So it's not a problem at all. Jill, you mentioned that some programs may not have been discussed tonight. Anything available in the veterinary scope? That's an excellent question. I'm going to throw that over to Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because I have students right now in my program that are lining themselves up to shadow and be a part of vet tech and shadow veterinarians. We have Sylvania Vet I have 2 past students that are currently working there. They started when they were seniors, one in the daycare and one as a vet tech, and that is how they started. We do not offer like a TPS, a straight small animal course where they're getting a vet. They can do like a vet tech program, but what we have seen is that students that want to do the veterinarian do go through my pathway to line up their internships their senior year. And in the other classes that I teach, the feeder courses, we do animal science. So that class does have the anatomy of animals, how to take care of the nutrition side of it. So we do touch on the animal side, science side of that program. But to talk about a veterinarian program, we would have to add an entire program. But students do take my course to go that route.
And we have had the question before, if you're going to go the vet route, what's better to take, med tech or horticulture? And I think that a lot of the conclusion we've come to is that horticulture is more flexible if you're interested in going into the veterinary field. Mr. Smith is incredibly flexible with the placements, and making sure that the students get the on-the-job experience that they want out of that program. Ms. Coy, I see, I'm just getting used to the Google Meet hand raising thing. I'm seeing a hand raised icon on your block there. Did you raise your hand again, or is that left over?
Sorry, I'm not used to Google Meet too. I'm used to Zoom, so I'm gonna put it down.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's all new. They just included that feature in the last week or two. So we're done with the chat. I don't see any other hands. Anybody else have any last questions before we wrap this up? Okay, I think you can tell from the presentation, from Mr. Austin, from Mr. Smith, that we are really proud and excited about the Career Tech programs. And I'm going to leave you with this. This is an opportunity for students that really want to get engaged in education at this point in their life. Sometimes traditional education, the traditional liberal arts education, can be pretty disengaging for students that want something more relevant, want something more hands-on, something more authentic than some of that conceptual learning in an English class or a social studies class. That may really drive some students in the building. It did drive me, but I thought I was kind of rare. Most of our students want to get involved. They want to do something. And we like to take that energy from students in education and we like to channel it. And the Career Tech programs that we have, that we can offer to students, are an awesome opportunity for channeling that energy and to get students engaged in education. And the name of that game for Sylvania Schools is flexibility. The fact that we are, well, I'd say we're small compared to Penta, small compared to TPS, and small compared to Fort County. I rarely consider our district small when you're managing all of it, but the fact that we are the size we are allows us to be personal and individualized. So I think that your students, if they apply the energy to the program, will get a great experience. I want to thank Mr. Smith for working through this presentation with me and helping me with this. Huge assistance in developing everything that happened tonight. Mr. Austin, I'd really like to thank you for jumping in and being able to answer some questions and talk about your program. Don't forget, those two gentlemen and Mr. Roach will have their program a week from Wednesday to give you more information about horticulture, construction, and the manufacturing trades program that Mr. Austin is working on, the welding and everything else. And then the week following, we'll have our computer programming open houses. So I hope you join us for one of those. Thank you very much for being here this evening. I hope you have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, considering the circumstances. If you have questions outside of this, please feel free to reach out through email. We'd be happy to respond. Thank you all very much.